Welcome, everybody, to the Bryan Foltice Behavioral Finance Podcast. My name is Dr. Bryan Foltice, and I am an associate professor of finance at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana, United States of America. And my goal is to teach you about behavioral finance in hopes that you can make better decisions in life and financial decisions with this information. Today's podcast is going to look at prospect theory at a deeper level. I know we've done an introduction to prospect theory, and we just came off of the last podcast that talked about the market efficiency and teeing up a nice introduction there. So now what we're going to do is we've set ourselves up for a deeper dive into prospect theory for the next couple of podcasts. And then after that, we'll set up one more deeper dive into market efficiency. And then after that, we basically end, if you were taking my course, that would be the end of section 1. Good news for you is that there would be no exam for you to take. We just get to move on to the biases and heuristics section. So as we mentioned before, we're going to just toggle back and forth, setting the foundation for both the psychology of money and then also the market efficiency conversation before diving into the good stuff, the behavioral stuff. But anyway, I do believe that this is good stuff. This is the prospect theory conversation. And this is one of the areas that I've seen people dabble in and not do a deep dive, and at least if stuff that I haven't seen. And the best I saw, which was pretty bad, was Robert Shiller. He did a Yale lecture for his behavioral economics class that was posted, and he gave prospect theory a stab at it, and it's like, well, maybe I'm just jealous that he's got the Case-Shiller index and there's no Foltice index and there are no Foltice phenomenons yet that I know of. So nevertheless, what I'd like to do, and this is my intention, I'm here to teach people, I want to educate, and I want to lay out information that may not be totally easy or completely easy to understand, but I want to try to make it that way, or try to make it palatable for people to actually understand. So here's my crack at it. Ready or not, here we go. So if you remember a couple of podcasts ago, and by the way, thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate this, and would love to hear from you as well. If you have anything that you want to hear from me, it's not a classroom that you can raise your hand, but I would love to hear from you if you have any comments or questions or anything like that. You want me to come speak at your business or your workshop, I would love to do that as well. But you can find me on here or bryanfoltice.com or at Instagram. And if you haven't done so, please make sure you like and subscribe so we can continue this conversation together. It's no fun doing this alone. More people, the better. As I was saying, in a previous podcast, we talked about that coin flip where I had that $100 bill plus an extra dollar, was offering you $101 if you won the coin flip. And if you lost, you'd actually have to Venmo me $100. So you would lose $100. So from a utility standpoint, expected value standpoint, you should take that. But because of our loss aversion and some of the framing, then we didn't really want to, nobody would take me up on this, or very rarely would people take me up on that coin flip. So we said that's the loss aversion coefficient. But now we're going to take a step back, and I want you to make a choice here. I've got a decision A. Decision A. And we've got an 80% chance that you would win $1,000. And 100% chance, and this is the other option, option B, 100% chance you'll win $750. All right, so there it is. My black marker died. Red marker saved the day. So A or B. 80% chance is A for $1,000. B is 100% guarantee for $750. Which one would you choose? I know I'm going to be behaviorally consistent with what I chose last time, and that's whenever guaranteed money is on the table, I'm going to want to take that guaranteed money. I don't want to risk it. So I am going to say B in this area. And that's what I'm sticking with. You can choose. Most people will choose B. They'll follow my train of thought and just say, I want the guaranteed money. But now let's see, what's behaviorally inconsistent about this? Well, expected value of that. Obviously, B is 750. That's the expected value. Letter A, expected value of that is 800. So I'm not a utility maximizer in this case when we think about utilities or expected value. And that's where I go, okay, so we're still inconsistent. But in this case, when we have this layout, I'm going to be what is called risk averse. So you can see here, if I really spelled it out, if there's an 80% chance of 1,000, that also means implicitly there's a 20% chance of 0. So A is technically a risky. This is more or less risk-free, or it's certain. And so I am choosing certainty here, which means I am averse to risk, even if it means giving up expected utility. So risk averse in this domain. And that's not just me. This is a majority of people when we test them. All right. So there's A and B, risk averse. In C and D now, I'm going to ask another set of questions. The next set of questions is going to give you an 80% chance of losing $400. Or I'm sorry, 80% chance of losing $1,000. So we're keeping this consistent. Loss of $1,000. And 100% chance is the other option, that you would lose $750. So now we have a guaranteed loss of $750 or an 80% chance of a loss of $1,000, but that also implies a 20% chance that you won't lose anything. All right, so when I take a look at this, if I'm like everybody else, which I probably would be in this case, I'm going, you know what? I'm going to take a gamble here. I want to gamble, and I want to take at least a chance that there's a 20% chance I don't have to pay anything, because I'm guaranteed to have a painful $750 payment. There's a slightly worse payment, but the damage mostly would already be done emotionally, and so it's a loss is a loss. And I'm going to hang on to that hope that there's 20% that I won't have to give up any money. So if I'm with the majority of people that we actually chose C. We chose the risky one now. And this is also behaviorally inconsistent because the expected value of D is negative 750 and the expected value of C is negative 800. So now we chose the suboptimal utility in this one. But then we also did something else. We switched our preference to now be risk-seeking. We went into the risky area. So we were risk-averse in A and B. Now we are risk-seeking in C and D. What's the main difference? The answer is framing. So positive domain, positive numbers, when we have in general, when we have positive numbers, we are generally risk averse. When we have negative numbers, we generally are risk seeking. And that gives us this pretty picture. And I'm sticking with the red. Now I've got my chart. And I'll show you here in just a moment after I make my... All right. So here, I've got this Y and X axis. Sorry, my black marker died on the spot here. So we're just going all red. And do you remember our previous conversation with expected utility, that not all gains are created equal? So our first gains are really exciting, and then over time, they start to diminish. So this is called diminishing value sensitivity. So we see this strongly, and prospect theory captures this in what we call alpha, or our diminishing value sensitivity. So little word of warning, some math is coming up. So brace yourselves, and but it won't be bad, and it's redundant a little bit with what we had before with our natural logarithm. Next, we have our losses. So remember, our losses are felt larger or more than our gains. So as exciting as our gains are, our losses are that much worse. So I am going to make the first losses steeper in the negative territory. And that's what I tried to do here. The negative steepness is going to be 2.25 times on average as steep as the gains. But then we also understand that over time, we also have diminishing value sensitivity. This is my old George Costanza, the old Seinfeld episode where they were investing in a stock and they'd go up and down and be happy and then sad. And when it really got battered, Jerry says, "I'm out." And George says, "You know what? I've already felt the pain. I'm going down with the ship." And I'll never forget, I don't care anymore. I don't feel any more pain. I'm going down with the ship, and I'm holding on to it. And that's what many of us experience, that when we lose on a stock or a position in our portfolio, we feel that pain, and then we go, "You know what? I'm already dead. I'm just going to go down with the ship." And we don't feel any more losses as much as those first losses. And that's what this is trying to depict. But on one side, we do understand that we are risk averse in our gains. That's over on the right side. And when we have losses, that is our left side. So right up the middle is our zero. That's our reference point. And the next podcast, we're actually going to talk about reference point and reference point dependence, because that can fluctuate. This is one of the limitations of this model, that it can fluctuate. And if you're trying to win in life, then I'm always trying to keep everybody's reference point low. So then their reference point about expectations for me is very low, then I'm setting myself up to have the positive gain where they're happy with me rather than over-promising and under-delivering. So anyway, what we have here is a pretty chart, but like I said, that's nice visually. I want the numbers. So here is the actual utility function that shows these numbers. Oh, we're going double whiteboard today, friends. Double whiteboard. Those of you on the podcast, I would say that you're missing out, but I don't think you really are that much. So everybody's a winner. So our value function here is split into two domains. So remember, if we have a positive, it's going to be that increase to the alpha power. So that is our diminishing value sensitivity. That is any time we have a gain greater than 0. And then we have, for losses, anything less than 0, we're going to have our loss aversion coefficient applied, and we're going to call that K. And we multiply that by negative X. So negative makes that positive, which we take to the alpha power. And then we multiply it by negative K. So double negative makes a positive. Negative loss aversion coefficient makes that a negative number. So alpha, if you have no diminishing value sensitivity, alpha is going to be 1, which means every dollar is just as good as the last one. There's no curvature. And every loss is felt just as much as the previous. Typically in empirical studies, if we want to capture who that average person is, the natural logarithm, more or less, I believe actually is 0.88. And that's what we typically use. If you're in my class, you use 0.8 as your diminishing value sensitivity. It gives a nice, fairly accurate curvature. And then your K is your loss aversion coefficient. And that's very individualized based on how much you feel your losses compared to your gains. But if we were taking an average investor, we're going to be around 2.25. So now we can take any coin flip or any decision and capture an average actual decision maker based on this new prospect theory function. Pretty cool, right? Well, these are 2 dimensions here where we've captured the general loss aversion in the positive gains. But when we turn negative, we become risk seeking. And that is generally true. But now I'm going to ask a question. We're not done yet. There's a couple more pieces we need to add to this puzzle. And what better way than to ask a couple more questions? Number 1, I've got a 0.1% chance that you will win $5,000, or a guaranteed 100% chance you will gain $5. There it is. A on top, B on the bottom. 0.1% chance, so that's 1 in 1,000. And 100% chance, here's your $5. Bye-bye. Which one will you take? Well, as much as I'd like my $5, I realize now that I am a black coffee drinker, and I think that Starbucks puts cocaine. They got to slip something in that, because that coffee gives me a kick. My regular coffee, even if I buy Starbucks at the grocery store, I know they're slipping it with something. And the reason I know is because I go there quite often to get my fix. And I also realize when I'm at an airport, they don't have the mobile app, and I'm just standing in this monster line. Like I feel like I'm a fiend. Like, just, when you go to the airport is the place that really shows me how much of a junkie I am when it comes to that. I have to have my fix. But for $5, I can get a cup of coffee. But not my fancy fiance. She wants a chai latte with almond milk. And that shit's $7. And I have to admit, I really like it. So I like it as well. So I always play the, hey, look, I'm the hero. I was just thinking about you. And I bought you this venti coffee, or venti chai tea. And I got that, so maybe you could share a little bit with me. But she does. And then she's happy with me. So it's a win-win situation. But for $5, I'm not getting that. So I have to take a risk, and I'm going to be like the majority of people here. And I want $5,000, so at least I can buy a few of Starbucks runs in the future if I win. And that's what most people are saying. Now, what just happened here? Didn't we just say we were risk averse? These are positive numbers. So remember, we just went for the risky one, because that means 99.9% of 0. There's a 0 outcome. And we just said we were risk averse. But now we actually just went back and we're risk seeking in the positive domain. So there's more to it. So when we have low probability of a big gain, we become risk-seeking again. All right, please tell me. I know you're thinking, please tell me this is it. We're done. Nope, not. One more. There's one more thing. We're not done. So we become risk-seeking here. Now, what happens if we go C and D? And we're just going to change a couple of things. For C, we have a 0.1% chance of losing $5,000. 99.9% chance of not losing anything, or 100% chance of losing $5. And now, once again, we can see the expected utilities for all of these are both $5. This is both -5. So we have to choose one, and utility-wise, they're no different. But if we're looking at this now, and I've got guarantee loss of $5 in order to avoid a possible loss, even if it's 1 in 1,000, of $5,000, I am going to pay my $5 and walk away knowing that I don't have to pay $5,000, or at least have the risk. So what we just did now is we said we were risk-seeking in the negative domain we just outlined. We switched that again. So now we are risk-averse in the negative domain. So what happened? Well, we find out here on this chart that once we get out on a certain area where we have low probabilities of both big gains and big losses, we revert back and we switch. So it's called a fourfold pattern of risk. And now you go, okay, now you're overthinking it or whatever. Bear with me. What does A and B look like? Maybe add a few zeros to this and reduce the probability. Expected utility is still going to be worse. Then that's lottery ticket right there. This is a lottery where we're risk-seeking, and we fund a lot of our state projects through making money off of lotteries. On the other side, you go, well, in the negative domain, what does that look like? Well, that looks like insurance to me. You think about any prominent skyline in any U.S. city. Usually there's a bank somewhere in that skyline, but then there always is an insurance company. So our risk aversion in these loss domains, that's what insurance is. So what we would actually do here is, if there's this probability based on their actuarial tables, they're going, all right, I bet you if most people are choosing $5, what would happen what would happen if we just raised it to $10? Would people still want that? Okay, how about $20 for this peace of mind? $30. And now that's how the whole insurance industry, it can be so profitable, is that they're really looking at our tendency to be very risk averse in these low probability of high losses. And from an individual standpoint, we have to be careful, because at some point it does make sense to have that insurance, to pay a little bit in order to avoid that large loss. So I'm buying a house. We're closing and moving pretty soon, in the next week or two from when I'm recording this. And so, of course, I'm buying good home insurance, because when a $500,000 house goes up and has a flood in it, I want to be insured. I am not going to gamble it and say, well, actuarially speaking, it's a very low probability. Like, no, I'm going to pay my insurance because I want some peace of mind. Don't necessarily have the ability at the moment to write a $500,000 check to get a new house. So in that case, it makes a lot of sense. But sometimes we can exaggerate that. And I've seen some pretty interesting warranties that have come out. So if you buy a computer and I'm paying $1,000 for the computer, and you have a warranty out there for a year that is $200, in my mind, I'm doing the math going, wait a minute, are you saying that there's a 20% chance that this computer is just going to die, or I'm going to need some serious help in replacing this computer within a year? Because that's what your price is telling me the implied probability is. And I know most people don't think in those terms, and this is probably why I don't get invited to a lot of parties, because I think this way. But humor me here. If you're buying this, that's what you're essentially saying. You're saying, no, I believe there's a more than 20% chance that this is going to die in the next year, and I'm going to pay for that insurance. And so that's where you can see some of these warranties or insurance policies can be really inflated based on our risk aversion. So now, just to keep this all in summary, what we've been talking about so far is when we have gains, we are generally risk averse. So I'm going to write this all out. We are generally loss averse. In losses, we are generally risk seeking. But then we switch when we have low probability of high gains. We become risk seeking. That is lotteries, seeking out risk. And when we have a low probability of high losses, we become very averse again. All right. So I believe in the next, and some of you might say, actually, I think I didn't do it in the next one. So, final piece of the puzzle, and I get this in virtually all my classes when I ask them about doing a coin flip. And it's really thoughtful, and I think it's really clever that the question pops up. And if I say, how about I offer you a coin flip? If you win $50. If you lose, you pay me $30. Now, okay. Many of you might be thinking about this. So if your loss aversion coefficient is 1.6 or less, you're in. But most of us, even myself included, are going to be above that. So we're going, no, I'm still out. But what would happen if we did more than one coin flip? Would you do 2, 3, or 4? And I say, oh, why would you ask that? So, well, many people would say I might change my decision if we combine these outcomes. So this is our conversation now on how we interpret this value function. Now that we've laid out this prospect theory function, and we've said, we've got gains that we interpret this way, losses we interpret with the amplified loss aversion coefficient. What if we can consider how we think about these decisions either one of two ways. One, we integrate each decision, which means we completely reset our reference point each time a coin flip is made or a decision is made. Our reference point either moves up or down, so we readdress the same conversation. If that's the case, and we have a negative outcome for a coin flip, we will always have a negative outcome, because we would always move our reference point again, reassess, get the same outcome, and that's no. And so we would constantly go in that direction. However, if we now segregate, So integration is thinking about it and moving it. Segregating, or I'm sorry, I was teaching wrong. Damn it. Segregation is segregating, of course. So thinking about it separately. So now Robert Schiller, he's back to having a better lecture than me now. Segregation is keeping all of your decisions segregated. Integrating is now combining all the possible outcomes. All right, so follow me here. If you have that 50-30, and let's say we've got a loss aversion coefficient of 2.25, and your value sensitivity is 0.88. If we took one coin flip, we're going to use our value function, and we say that if we win $50, that's $50, so 50 to the 0.88 power times 50%. That's the probability that that will happen. So our utility for that is 15.64. If we have a loss of 30, that's 30 to the 0.88 power multiplied by negative 2.25 multiplied by 50%, and we get negative 22.44. And then we add it all together, and we get negative 6.8. And because negative 6.8 is less than 0, not taking the coin flip, we're going to say no deal. And so if we were to segregate all of our decisions, silo them, then how many coin flips we do, we're going to reset our reference point, and every time we're going to say no deal because our expected utility is a negative number. But now if we integrate our decision, let's say let's do 2 coin flips. What would that look like? Well, we have to run the outcomes here. So there is a 25% chance we win 2 times. That means you would win. That is $100. And that's to the 0.88 power is the value coefficient multiplied by 25%. And that gives you 14.39. You also have a 50% chance that you win 1 and you lose 1, which means you win 50 or lose 30. Either way, you're going to gain 20. And take 20 to the 0.88 power, multiplied by 50%, and you get 6.98. And now you've got the loss. So if you lost twice, you still could lose $60. So negative 60 to the 0.88 power times negative 2.25 times 25% gives us negative 20.65. So now we have the 3 outcomes, 14.39, 6.98, and negative 20.65. When we sum all those together, we actually get 0.72, which is greater than 0, and now we've changed our decision. If we integrate the 2 coin flips, we will take the deal and change our mind. We went from negative to positive. All right. So that is your complete picture of prospect theory. But I digress and actually say that there's more to this. That is the math behind it. That is the fourfold that nobody ever seems to talk about. They usually say we're generally this way, generally that way. This is a more comprehensive way, and I hope it makes sense to you in a certain way. And we actually did math, and now we have hopefully sorted out by now the integration, combining, and segregation of keeping multiple decisions separate. When we come back in our next podcast, we're going to get into all about framing, reference point, and then we're teeing ourselves up for biases out in the wild. So there are 3 or 4 different things that we're going to see in horse betting. So no better place than sports betting or horse betting that show us our own biases and how we behave that are all inconsistent with what expected utility is showing us. So if you have any questions or if you need anything from me, please do not hesitate to contact me. Leave a note. Find me on bryanfoltice.com. See me on Instagram. I think that's where I'm going to be. I'm too old for Snapchat and I'm too young for Facebook. So I'm finding myself right in the sweet spot of Instagram. Would love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe and follow me on the next one. We're just getting going here on this podcast and love to have you along. So thanks again and have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.